Hello and welcome to the Plot Twist Podcast, episode 30, I believe. My name is Catherine. I am coming to you from the north of Germany, which is where I recently moved and now live with my husband and our 3 kids. And this is a slow fashion podcast focusing primarily on knitting. And I'm so happy to welcome you to this space, to a new week. It's only been a week since I podcasted last, so that's fun. I mean, who am I? But it's so good to be back already. And I have a little treat for you, sort of, because I got a new microphone for recording the podcast, because even I, and I mean, that means I'm not very picky with sound, but even I realized that the sound of my videos was not quite there. And so I decided to get a new microphone that would hopefully improve the sound and just make the viewing experience so much better. So I hope that works for you. But then again, on the downside, I have a very raspy voice because I'm still coming out of yet another cold, because I've been stumbling from one into the next over the last few weeks. And my voice was almost completely gone this weekend, so the Easter weekend. And now it's kind of back, but I have to be easy on my voice, which is kind of hard with little kids. But I just have to try and get back on my feet in that sense, kind of, which is kind of a weird metaphor for the voice, but you know what I mean. So, and yes, I realize that's kind of ironic that I got a new microphone to improve the sound, and then my voice is going to ruin this entire thing now. But bear with me. Sooner or later, spring is going to be here for good, and the colds will get fewer and fewer, as will all the other illnesses, I hope, because I mean, we've been really under the weather for the last few weeks, but I'm not going to complain about that now, but just dive into the knitting. I have only knitting to show you today. I wanted to show you a mending project, but my daughter ran away with it. So she took, it's a pair of pants that I had to mend yet again. And now she has like 2 fun patches on the knees. So I wanted to show you those. But as an example of how you can mend something really fast and easy and fun, and the recipient will be very glad, I'm going to show you this pair of pants. Oh man, the pair of pants, when I can, in the future. But she really loves them and she runs around in them, and that's the entire idea, behind mending them. So, and that's why I only have knitting for you today. But it's kind of a good thing too if I make this a short and sweet episode, because of my voice. And yeah, but I did want to check in with you. I did want to come back after only just a week. Even that means I have fewer things to show you and just not as much progress, but it also means that I get to check in with you and just hang out with you a little bit and share my progress and my thoughts, and and just say hi. So let me know what you're working on or what you have been working on over the last week since we spoke. And let's dive right in. I'm going to tell you real quick that I'm wearing my Wool and Honey sweater designed by Drea Renee Knits. This is knit out of Brooklyn Tweed Loft in the colorway Thistle. I don't remember now off the top of my head the size that I made, but it's pretty oversized. It is just perfect. It's a lovely yarn. I think it's just the right yarn for this project. In fact, I have been over the last few months really been thinking about getting another sweaters quantity for that, but since I know I'm not going to cast it on right away or anytime soon really, I have held back on that, and really been good about making very intentional yarn buying decisions, because after our move, we're still pretty much living out of a box. I mean, that's exaggerating it a little bit, but our move is far from complete because we still have many rooms in the house to renovate. So many of my stuff is still boxed up, and I'm very hesitant about adding, stuff to the house that I don't absolutely have to schlep indoors. So that's why I really have held back. And yeah. But I am pondering color combinations. If you need more information because you want to knit this as well, I'm going to link my Ravelry page down below for you. If Ravelry is inaccessible to you, but you want to reach out on something that I say on the podcast, don't hesitate to leave a comment or contact me on Instagram, or send an email. I will have all of the information just down below the video. There's a little arrow and it says more, and if you click on that, the menu will unfold, and you will be able to find the links for whatever it is I'm talking about. Okay, I am actually able to present a finished object, a very fresh finished object, because I only finished last night, but I did want to bind off and have that sense of accomplishment because of the other project that I'm working on that I'm just going to show you in a bit. That is sort of an ongoing bigger project that is not going to be finished anytime soon. So and I'm very glad I just dedicated this one evening to, hold on, as I'm straightening these out, to finishing my stripy socks, my scrappy stripy socks. I love them. I think they're so fun. They turn out so differently than I thought they were gonna, but I'm very happy with them, with the way that they turned out. Yes, this is still happening. I mean, so hold on. I'm going to show you the ends in a second. So I used the main color, and I'm going to talk about that because if you've been here last week, you may remember this has been an issue. There's been an issue with this color. And I added just leftover yarns. I thought I was just going to shoot for all sorts of pinks and purple, but I didn't have enough, and some of the yarn bowls suddenly, and some of the yarns suddenly turned into like turquoise and some sort of, I don't know, peachy affair, and then I ran out of yarn and had to add in something else entirely for the heels. So the entire color palette thing did not work out at all, but it was totally okay. I just went for it. It's a scrappy sock. I mean, what do you have to lose? Nothing, right? And so it's not all pinks, which I wanted to make, and it ended up being a sort of a shorty sock, not quite, but almost, because of the fact that I only had just a low amount, or like a relatively small leftover of this pink, light pink main color. But in the end, it made it all work. And I'm going to show you the second sock. I used the same sort of leftover balls on each stripe, on each sock, because I knit them concurrently, so on two different sets of needles, but one stripe here and one stripe there, so that they would always be level and at a par, sort of. And that's why I think, I mean, if you hold them up like that, they look very similar, right? So they look scrappy but not random. And that's what I did with those. I knit those on 2.25 millimeter needles, cast on 60 stitches with a German twisted cast on, but I will hold my needles double for that cast on, because otherwise it's not giving me this sort of stretch, and I need it because I have very high arches. So I will either go with a tubular cast on if it's a 1x1 rib, or with a German twisted, and I hold my needles double, so that I will have this sort of stretch in the cuffs. And I went, as you can see, with the 2x2 ribbing, and then I would knit 3 rows in the main color and 4 in the contrasting colors, so as to make the contrasting colors stand out a little bit more and the main color recede just that little bit to the background. And I went for the contrasting heel, just out of sheer necessity. And I thought I had run out of my pink Tweety leftover. And that is why, if you look very closely, you may see that this stripe, this pink one, is now a different skein of yarn, is a different color. And it's also just a tiny scrap, so it would never, it only lasted barely for this round, these 3 rounds. It would not have lasted for the tips, and it would not have lasted for the respective, last stripe and tip on the other sock. So I was pondering, and I talked about this last time, whether or not to get another ball of this Tweety commercial sock yarn, which would not have been a problem. Also, like, with respect to budget, it would not have been a huge investment, but it would have been a bummer ordering this one skein. And I mean, the purpose of the sock was to use up scraps, and then I don't really like to add new scraps. But I also did not want to look down on my feet and just see the massive compromise that I would have, put in here, because I really wanted this tweed yarn to be, at the tips of the toes and just on the cuff at the very least. So I went stash diving again, because I thought I have to have some sort of pink at least that I can finish this off with. And I found one sock that I knit in this color way. That's what this leftover came from. That is where this leftover came from, this pink Tweety yarn. I had knit a sock, and I remember this sock. I just didn't remember at the time that I would probably still have it. And it had like gray contrasting heels, cuffs, and toes. And I had like 3 braids sort of that I made up as I went on the instep. It's just that I never knit the second sock because I never really loved it. Neither the process nor the finished product, and I don't know why, but I just put it aside and just let it sit there, when I knew perfectly well I should have taken it apart, then, and just frogged. But that's where I found another handful of this yarn. So I could have now, looking back, gone for a longer leg, but that's it doesn't matter. They're fine as they are. But the good thing is I could finish off the toes with that colorway that I really wanted for the toes. Now it looks a little bit crumply because I had to unpick. I had to pull from the sock. So I frogged the sock as I went. I would frog it a bit and knit with that yarn, and then frog and knit. So that's why this part just looks a little bit crumply, as just like the way yarn looks when you've just frogged it and then knit with it again. But that will straighten itself out with a little soak, and and then it will all be fine. And now for the insides, because I've only woven in the end on the Kitchener stitch on the toe, which is right here, and all of the rest will still have to be woven in. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it isn't too bad. It looks a lot now, but it's okay. It will be okay. For the amount of joy that I get out of scrappy stripy socks, it's totally fine, weaving in those ends. And also for the amount of joy that I get out of using up my scraps, because I love finding good projects for my scraps, not just because then I don't have to throw anything away, but also because those are often very fun, spontaneous color play projects. So weaving in the ends is okay. I'll do it. And that's my finished object for the week. And now I will move on to my work in progress. And before I can quickly show you, because I put it here, I bought a new Notions pouch at a flea market that I went to just the other week in Berlin when we went for a visit to our old neighborhood. And there was a beautiful flea market that they do annually or every half a year, I think. I think. And it just so happened that I was there at the right time and I could attend. I just could go. And I found this little hand sewn bag for $2, and I just got it because I thought it looked so cute, and it's just about the right size for my what's it called, ruler thingy that I have in there. So I can squeeze it in and it works. And the inside looks like that. Isn't that cute? I just thought it was so pretty, and it was very hard for me finding a notions pouch that I was kind of happy with, because I mean, in the right size, because I don't know, I was just never convinced when I looked online that, you know, to buy a pouch. You can buy all sorts of pouches that are smaller or have like funky shapes and look all beautiful, but a sort of a wider, like a more rectangular shape, that was really hard to find. And so when I found this, I thought that could really be perfect, and I enjoy it so much. My other one was just like an interim solution, and it really was almost falling apart. So yay for that. And now my work in progress. Oh man, almost every time, right? I'm sorry. I will eventually learn this phrase. So my one project that I'm working on is my jelly roll blanket right here. And I'm going to show you in a bit more detail, but it is interesting because at the beginning of the year and up until the last video, I started working through my old projects and that I still had on my needles, and I just wanted to show them some love and get some of them off my needles and just also off my back and off my mind and on my body, and just be able to enjoy all the beautiful patterns and yarns that I just had, and some of them still have laying around there. So that was very gratifying, and I didn't know how much I was going to love finishing off just projects that had accumulated, but I truly loved it. And I'm still in that mindset of let's work on some of those, you know, over the next few weeks and months. Hence the blanket. And I was very hesitant to cast on those socks, but they were for our car drive to Berlin, so that I would have something small and fun and just mindless to work on, and I would not have to maneuver a blanket. So yeah, that's why I did in the end cast those on, but I was very hesitant because I really felt just, I don't know, insecure about casting on something again, and too many things, because I also cast on my Velocore vest that I haven't worked on now, and so I'm not going to show it today. But that was a sweater quantity that I had waiting for that particular project. So that is, you know, that was very fun to finally cast it on. Very glad I did, and I had been thinking about it for quite a while. But I found myself with 3 individual projects on my needles, and that was a lot, because before I had really been a monogamous knitter on every project, and the thought made me a little uncomfortable. But then because of our trip, I kind of thought that would be the safer way to go, and it was a good decision. But once we got back home, I immediately went back to just one project, and those socks, I think I knit on them on 2 days, just so as to mix it up a bit. But I just knit on them just a little bit last night, and then once before while I was cooking. I'm not much of a cook. I really do not enjoy cooking at all, but sometimes, usually my husband cooks, but sometimes, you know, I have to. And I was waiting for it was one of those meals where you're not super engaged, because I don't ever cook, so like that. But where you wait on one thing to boil so that you can add a few ingredients, and then you wait for 5 minutes for something else to be ready so you can do something there. And I knit in the between time, you know. And that is just, I mean, if you want to get more knitting done, you really have to knit whenever your hands are free. And that's just what I did. And the socks were so portable and perfect for just putting them on the counter. They would not take up a lot of space, and I could put them down whenever. So that they were perfect for sort of kitchen knitting, if you will. But other than that, I have really been monogamous with my blanket. And I have to say, and I was not that kind of a knitter I didn't used to be that knitter over the last few years, over the last few years. But now I really feel very comfortable with just knitting on one item at a time, because it just calms me down and I can see my progress, and I never have to think, am I going to knit on this or that, on the other thing, or none of those? Should I cast on something else entirely? But the choice is made already. I'm going to work on this until I decide I want to work on something else, but all of the nights, not just today, but, you know, for the foreseeable, for the next week or 2 or 3, I don't know. Or I will just work on something until the project is finished. And that is just what I've been craving over the last few months, really. And it's so interesting to me that I fell back into that rhythm right when we were home. And now I've talked so much about it, I'm going to show you my blanket, and then after I'm going to explain what I have added and how I'm going to continue adding on to it. Oh man, now how do I do that? I will have to somehow insert the needles so that everything doesn't fall. Let's see how that goes. Okay, here goes. That's my blanket, and I've knit, I have to undo this up until here. So last time we spoke, I had only just started, this is where I cast on this gray stripe, and I was somewhere here. And so in the meantime, so over the last, 6-7 days, I finished this entire gray stripe that I hope you can see now on the screen. And I said last time that I want to try and knit one stripe per month so that I will be able and have this off my needles by around Christmas or like Advent or in winter, when winter really kicks in. And so this would have been my March stripe, and I finished a few days before the end of March, and then because I was enjoying this project and I did not want to put it down, and so I cast on the next stripe immediately after that, and I thought this could be my April stripe. And if I still want to get going and knit further, I'm just going to keep adding stripes. I mean, it just means the blanket's going to be finished sooner, so that is that would also be really fun. But I'm not doing this with any sort of pressure or time plan like that I really have to stick to. I'm not that kind of a knitter. I don't make myself work on something usually, so only if it's for a gift and it has a deadline, but that's the sort of knit that I try to avoid in the first place. So, but it can happen, you know. But anyway, so this is the green stripe that I'm now working on, and I've gotten up until here, and this is about half the stripe. It's pretty much half the stripe, so I'm going to have to put in another, 3 days and knit the other half, and then I'll see whether I want to move on to the next. I think the next would either be pink or yellow, because I have both a little baggie with pink and yellow scraps and minis set aside. And this is the sort of bag that I mean. So I have, in this case, it's a bag from from a homespun house. When I ordered some yarn, she would have put this in there. And I sorted my yarn kind of by color and put together little bags. So I'm going to arrange this so that you can see something. And it looks kind of like that. And then when I have finished one stripe and want to grab the other, I'm gonna grab the bag, leave all of the rest where it is so I don't have to, you know, drag it around with me all the time. And I have to say, I'm really looking forward to this color because that will be such a fun pop of color in this green stripe. And it's just a happy color. I would not necessarily put this in a garment for myself, so I thought this is a perfect place to put this fun color and be able to really enjoy it on a regular basis. So I'm really excited for that. You know, about the blanket. It's just an incredibly fun knit. So if I don't know if I've really said that, it's the Jelly Roll blanket designed by Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears. I'm knitting my blanket on needles that are completely lost in the yarn on my Knit Pro Zings in the 2.5 millimeter Knit Pro Zings. And it's a fingering weight blanket. And I put in all of my odds and ends, and that brings me so much joy. Again, scrappy projects are my favorites. Really. I mean, I'm a garment knitter, but I think my favorite thing in knitting is scrappy stuff. Not just because you don't really have to follow so many rules, but because you can be so creative and you're not restricted by a certain quantity of yarn that you've bought and that maybe you have spent so much money on, or I don't know, you're not constricted in those ways. So you're so free on so many aspects of the making, and there is so much color there. Even if you go with like a very tone or muted color palette, the nature of a scrappy project is that there is a lot of variation, right? And I think it's just so incredibly fun. It really sparks my creativity. It makes me incredibly happy to work on those projects, and it gives me the satisfaction of having done something with my yarn, with all of my yarn, you know, so that I can clear out everything of that one skein from my stash. And that is just, for me, it's just those are incredible happy projects. Like, those really make me so happy. So in a way, it's really such a spring project now that I come to think of it, you know, color. And yeah, it does make sense that I pulled this out in spring. Do let me know if you're a scrappy project kind of person, and if you can relate to this aspect of color play and using up every little bit and just being so efficient, you know. I'd be really interested, because I really always love to find other people who are as interested in scrappy knits and using up everything that you have. This is just, I'm a little bit, I could bring back my current obsession segment here, because this is really something I have been a bit obsessed with over the last few weeks. Okay, and hold on. I need to arrange my knitting. Okay, you guys, and I said this was going to be short and sweet, and I'm going to, you know, stick with that so as to not overdo it with my voice. And also, I don't know the sound of the video. I hope my scratchy voice was okay to listen to. Thank you so much for checking in, for hanging out with me for a little bit, taking some time out of your day to catch up with me. And yeah, please like and subscribe. Come back if you feel like it, and I hope I'll be back in about a week's time, but who knows, everything can happen with kids and life and health and whatnot, but I will be back as soon as I can. Meanwhile, happy knitting, happy transitioning into the next season, whichever it is that comes your way. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.